The Sudanese Armed Forces are the military forces of the Republic of the Sudan. During the 39-month transition to democracy that started in September 2019, the August 2019 draft constitutional declaration defines the Supreme Commander of the Sudanese Armed Forces to be the Mixed Civilian Military Sovereignty Council. In 2011, IISS estimated the regular forces numbers at 109,300 personnel, while in 2016-2017, the Rapid Support Forces had 40,000 members participating in the Yemeni civil war. During the Omar al-Bashir era, the Sudanese Armed Forces consisted of the Land Forces, the Sudanese Navy, the Sudanese Air Force, and the Popular Defense Forces. They also previously had joint integrated units formed together with rebels of the Sudan People's Liberation Army. The armed forces operated under the authority of the People's Armed Forces Act 1986. In 1991, the Library of Congress used the term Sudan People's Armed Forces to refer to the entire armed forces, but by the late 2000s, the Sudanese Armed Forces term was most widespread. In 2004, the Federal Research Division of the Library of Congress estimated that the Popular Defense Forces, the military wing of the National Islamic Front, consisted of 10,000 active members, with 85,000 reserves. The Popular Defense Forces were deployed alongside regular army units against various rebel groups. Article 10 states that the relationship between the military institution and executive authority is to be organized by the Armed Forces Law and the Rapid Support Forces Law. On the 28th of October 2019, the chair of the Sovereignty Council, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, issued a decree appointing a new military top-level command, called the General Staff, including Lt. Gen. Mohammad Osmana al-Hassan as Chief of General Satf, Lt. Gen. Abdullah al-Matari Hamid, Inspector General of the Armed Forces, several Deputy Chiefs of Staff, Lt. Gen. Esam Mohammad Hassan Karar as Commander-in-Chief of the Land Forces, Rear Admiral Marjub Bashar Ahmad Rahama as Commander of the Naval Forces, Lt. General L. Esam al-Din Said Koko as Commander-in-Chief of the Air Force. Sudan Tribune interpreted the changes in military leadership as a strategy by al-Burhan to tighten his grip on the army after the removal of Islamist generals. The origins of the Sudanese army can be traced to Sudanese soldiers recruited by the British during the reconquest of Sudan in 1898. Sudan officially became the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan in 1899. The highest-ranking British officer in Egypt, known as the Sadr, also served as Governor-General of the Sudan. In 1922, after nationalist riots stimulated by Egyptian leader Saad Zaghlol, Egypt was granted independence by the United Kingdom. The Egyptians wanted more oversight in the Sudan and created specialized units of Sudanese auxiliaries within the Egyptian army called al-Otira. This became the nucleus of the modern Sudanese army. The British Army formed the Sudan Defence Force as local auxiliaries in 1925. The SDF consisted of a number of separate regiments. Most were made up of Muslim soldiers and stationed in the north. But the Equatoria Corps in the south was composed of Christians. During World War II, the SDF augmented allied forces engaging Italians in Ethiopia. They also served during the Western Desert Campaign, supporting Free French and long-range desert group operations at Kufra and Jalo oases in the Libyan desert. Quote, in 1947, the Sudanese military schools were closed, and the number of Sudanese troops was reduced to 7,570. In 1948, the First Arab-Israeli War broke out. Sudanese Colonel Harold Salah al-Malik selected 250 combat-seasoned soldiers who had seen action in World War II. They arrived in Cairo to participate in a parade and were then dispatched to various units of the Egyptian army. This was a grave mistake, for the Sudanese had fought together in World War II and this broke unit cohesion. The decision was indicative of Egyptian military planners of the period. 43 Sudanese were killed in action in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. In 1953, The British and the new Egyptian government reached an agreement that Sudan was to be put on the path of independence. General Ahmad Muhammad became Sudan's first army chief in August 1954. This is significant for the Sudanese, for it was the first time it had an independent army that was not governed by Britain or Egypt. In March 1954, British troops in the Sudan consisted of one battalion stationed in Khartoum, reporting ultimately to the Governor-General. The Governor-General's military commander was the Major General commanding British troops in the Sudan, who was also Commandant of the Sudan Defence Force. In this post from 1950 onward was Major General Reginald Cully Scoons. The last British troops, 1st Battalion Royal Leicestershire Regiment, left the country on 16 August 1955. All of the British troops were gone by the end of August 1955. The Equatoria Corps mutinied at Torit on 18 August 1955. Just before Ndep.